Hey guys, in today's video, we're checking out 3 Make It Sound Better plugins. All right, let's get this out of the way right off the bat. I know it's kind of a clickbaity title, but nothing is going to fix a horrible mix or a horrible recording. These plugins are very useful, but nothing is going to fix a terrible mix or recording. You should know how to do some basic recording, gain staging, EQ, compression, stuff like that, as this is not going to save an awful mix. However, now that that's out of the way, these can be very useful and they can be a great way to just give it that little extra 10% or just a shortcut to making your tracks sound more full, more clear, more powerful. So these can be very useful in just making it sound better in a really quick way. But again, it's not going to save a terrible mix. All right, now that that's out of the way, we're looking at 3 different types of plugins as well. The first one is going to be an intelligent EQ. The second one is going to be a plugin that basically just listens to your track and then gets you to a good starting point right off the bat. And the last one we're going to look at is a sweetener, but also has saturation built into it. So let's check them out. So I'm going to be demoing this using one of the tracks that I recorded. This is actually the very first track that I ever recorded and mixed by myself, so it seemed perfect to use for this demo video. This is my cover of In the Water by the band Annadelle. I'll post a link up above and down below so you can check out the full track so you can hear how it sounds before adding all of these plugins. Okay, so the first one we're going to check out is an intelligent EQ, and this one is Gullfoss. Now, an intelligent EQ is really cool in the fact that it's not just a static EQ. You don't just, raise 2K and then it just bumps everything at 2K. What an intelligent EQ like Gullfoss does is it listens to your track and it makes adjustments to the EQ as time goes on. I believe if I got my numbers right, it does 300 adjustments per second or something like that. It's really crazy. So it makes adjustments to the EQ as the song is going on. Really clever and a very useful tool so you don't have to automate a bunch of EQ. And I find that it's really effective actually. So it only really has a couple of parameters to really go over. The first 2 are the most important. You have your recover, in which case Gullfoss is going to listen and decide what frequencies are lacking and it's going to add a little bit more in those frequencies. The tame is going to reduce some of the frequencies that they think is too powerful. So if Gullfoss feels that there's too much energy in a certain frequency at a certain part in the song, it's going to reduce and cut that frequency. So that's recover and tame. So the more you bring it up on each of them, the more it's going to either add frequencies or reduce frequencies. Really clever. You have this bias knob where if you bring it upward, it's going to focus more on recovery. And if you bring it down into negative, it's going to focus more on taming if you really want to change those. Then you have this brighten knob. So, that's just, you can make it a little bit brighter or make it less bright. And you also have this boost knob, which you think it's kind of weird that they call it boost. It actually just boosts the low end or reduces the low end. So you get a little bit control over your highs and lows. And speaking of control over your highs and lows, you can also set these little red lines right here to not affect anything below or above a certain frequency. So if you're really happy with the way your sub bass sounds, you don't want Gullfoss to change that, you could put this red line at 80 or 100 or whatever, and it won't affect anything below that. And same with up above. I do find that Gullfoss does like to brighten tracks a lot, and that might just be because I might mix things a little bit dark. So if you want to not affect anything above 10K or something like that, you can do that as well. So very simple, very few parameters, and then Gullfoss just does the rest. So I'm actually going to demo this just on the master bus. I actually find myself using this on pretty much every single mix that I do from now on. It's just so easy just to clear up the mix a little bit. So I'm going to play you this instrumental part of the bridge of this song. I'm going to play it without Gullfoss on, and I'm going to start messing with the parameters, and I'm going to turn it on and off, and you'll see what it's doing. especially when you turn it off and then on again, you can really hear the difference. You should be listening with headphones on anything with mixing. You should be listening on nice monitors or on headphones, not just on your iPhone, just FYI. But you can really, it just brings just this little bit more clarity. I always, I usually struggle with kind of a muddy, more low end, and it just brings just a little bit more clarity without making it, really sharp or piercing or anything like that. It's just really great how it just makes all these micro adjustments to the EQ just to make a more even sound. Really fantastic. And like I said, I've been using that on pretty much everything. So that's Gullfoss, the intelligent EQ Make It Sound Better plugin. Okay, next up we have products by Izotope. There's 3 different ones here: Nectar, Neutron, and Ozone. And they all have this option of kind of a mix assistant or vocal assistant or master assistant is what they're labeled as. So what this does is you set a few parameters and then it listens to your track and then it makes adjustments to give you a nice starting point. So it adds some EQ, compression, reverb, all sorts of different stuff. And again, it depends on which one you do. I'm going to be demoing this with Nectar and Neutron. So Nectar is more focused towards vocals, and Neutron is directed at everything, as pretty much any instrument that you want. And just as a side note, if you don't like what the Mix Assistant does, you also have all these presets in here, so you can choose whatever you want and get another close starting point. Okay, so I'm going to demo this in the soft first verse part of this song. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off all of my plugins. I'm just going to leave Melodyne on. I'm going to turn everything else off and let you listen to how it sounds just dry recorded. After that, I'm going to run the Nectar Mix Assistant. You'll see everything that it does. I'm going to speed it up just for time so you don't have to sit there and watch how it goes. But listen to everything that it did just by listening to my track just once, based on the few parameters that I assigned. You hold your every breath. Life is for the living in the water. Feel that you should run, but where are you to hide? In the water. You hold your every breath. You hold your every breath, but life is for the living in the water. You feel that you should run, but where are you to hide? In the water. You hold your every breath, but life is for the living in the water. You hold your every breath, but life is for the living in the water. But you see how much better that sounded just right off the bat? It wasn't a very good recording. Like I said, that was the first recording that I've ever done. And, it wasn't the greatest capture at all, especially without any compression. But I listened to the track. I did have to adjust the volume a little bit, and it's not perfect by any means. Izotope doesn't advertise this as it's going to make your mix perfect. But it's just a great way to get you a much better starting point with some compression, some EQ, some reverb, which it didn't put any reverb on, but I added some, and a de-esser. It didn't put a gate on either, but that is also another option. So just really clever. I really like that it does 2 EQs. The first EQ, it kind of notches out some of the overbearing frequencies. And then the second EQ just kind of shapes the tone a little bit. Really nice that they do that. So again, just a quick little mix assistant. It listens to your track and it assigns some parameters to put it into a really good starting point. I really like it. I think it's awesome. Neutron 3 is also very similar. It's the same idea. You input a few parameters, you hit accept, and it adjusts your track with some EQ compression and stuff like that. I'm not going to walk you through the same process. I'm just going to show you what it came up with here really quick, and I'm going to discuss a few things with you about it. You hold your every breath, but life is for the living in the water.
you should run. But where are you to hide? In the water, you hold your every breath. Life is for the living. You hold your every breath. Life is for the living in the water.
It's a little bit different sound. Was it perfect? Again, no. Especially it was a little bit quiet, so I'll have to do some, you still have to do some automation and stuff like that and do some parameter adjustments. But again, it just gets you to a closer starting point just right off the bat, which I like. So that one doesn't have a reverb setting, which is fine. I usually use external reverbs anyways. So Neutron seems to like to do a double compression. That seems to be something that happens quite a bit with that one. That's the way that's set up. Did you notice they had this thing called Sculptor, and it looked very similar to the intelligent EQ in Gullfoss. So we actually have another intelligent EQ going with Sculptor. And if you look at the EQ as well, it see like the frequencies that were bouncing when it crossed like over a certain threshold. So it's doing kind of an intelligent EQ thing as well. So Nectar and Neutron can actually work together really well. But again, they're both just great at giving you a starting point. And again, Ozone is theirs for mastering. So it'll listen to your track and it says to play the loudest part of your track and it gives you a general master. But I'm not going to demo that one here, but you can always check that one out because it's the same idea. So again, all these plugins by Izotope have these really cool features of just, hey, set up my track to a good starting point and I'll take it from there. And I like that. All right. And last but not least is our Sweetener is how they advertise it. And this is Sugar by Process Audio. This one is just kind of meant to sweeten different parts of your track. So it's actually pretty clever how it works out. You can set it to stereo or you can do mid-side separately, which I like. But you can boost the lows, the low mids, the upper mids, and then the high end. And they give them different names, you know, air and thick and punch and stuff like that. So it's almost just like kind of like an EQ and multi-band compressor, but it doesn't really make anything shrill unless if you way overdo it. It's actually pretty easy to adjust this. I do recommend clicking this level management button because when you click that, it doesn't, when you start boosting like the high end, for example, it tries to compensate for the volume because if you just hear the volume getting louder, our ears sometimes think, oh, it sounds better because it's louder, but it's really not doing what you want it to do. The other thing I like about Sugar is it just has this saturation knob right here, which is another kind of just make it sound better option is saturation. Just adding a little bit of saturation can bring a lot of life to a track that is sounding a little bit more dull. And it's just kind of a one button, turn it up and saturate the sound a little bit and add some harmonic detail and a little bit of nice distortion. So that's why I included this one in here. So you can adjust the input and output gain. Then you have this master knob that'll turn up everything. The other thing that I like is that you can do effects only and you can listen to what processing it's done. And you also can bypass any of the bands as well. I do wish that you could change the bands. So like bring the air lower or higher, but it's not the end of the world because this is kind of just a quick fix, make it sound better. What Sugar is doing, you can do with, you know, saturation, multi-band compression, EQing, and other things, but this is just kind of a quick, hey, I want more air in the vocals. And the air is definitely my favorite for sure, just to bring a track just a little bit more life and make it sweeter as it says. So I'm going to mess with the second chorus of this song. That's kind of the biggest part. And I'm just going to kind of just mess with the parameters and let you listen to what it's doing. Don't forget to listen on headphones, and then I'll turn it on and turn it off and bypass it. And I'll be sure to click that effects only knob a couple of times so you can see what it's actually doing. So check it out.
Against the tide we struggle, the skin wearing, the skin wearing. Against the tide we struggle. we struggle. The skin wearing, the skin wearing. Again, I'm gonna lie. Who we are today. Against the tide we struggle. The skin wearing, the skin wearing. Against the tide we struggle. To keep.
So I do find that putting this on the master bus is not always the best way to use it. I actually think it works better for individual instruments, but for the sake of this demo, it seemed best to do that one because I actually wanted to show you, I thought that it brings a lot of life to the high end, but the low is almost too muddy. It's almost, especially for something like that, the thick low end usually just makes it a little too muddy. So that's one part of this plugin that you can definitely overdo, and you don't want to do that. But I really like doing the air. The air on the vocals is one of my favorites, and they advertise the shine and excite parameter to be specifically towards more modern pop type vocals to give it that push in those frequencies. But overall, it's a really cool plugin that I really like, and it's just a very quick, hey, I want a little bit more life in my songs, just sweeten it up a little bit. Plus, the one button saturator is worth it as well, which I really like. So that's Sugar, Sweeten, and Saturation. So that's it. Those are your three Make It Sound Better plugins. We have an intelligent EQ, a Get Me to a Good Starting Point, and a Sweetener. So thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Links to all of these plugins are down in the description down below, as well as where you can check out the song that I was mixing if you want to hear my first mix that I ever did. That song actually I had mastered by Aria Mastering, which is an automated mastering service for relatively cheap, which is pretty cool. I did a video on that as well if you're interested in checking that out. If you guys know of any other Make It Sound Better plugins, let me know in the comments down below. I'm always interested in checking those out. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you liked the video, and I'll see you guys next time.